Hey, what's up, guys? Coach Mac, playfastfootball.blogspot.com. Today we're going to take a look at defending split zone, and we're going to look at it two different ways. We're going to look at how to fit it basically off of 8-man front stuff versus 20 personnel, and we're going to look at it two different ways. We're going to look at it one way with an end that's a QB player or kind of a high gear, high wall player, and then folding your 8th man in the box back underneath to help with the split zone. And then we're also going to look at it with your back end players kind of cross reading the sniffer and fitting it off the sniffer with a hard wrong arm by your defensive end to try and get an extra player over the top. I think either way you fit it, I think you can fit it both ways, depending on how you want to do it. If you want to give different looks, it's basically kind of like a scrape and exchange in a way on the backside, where you play your defensive end as a chase player, and then you exchange over the top of that with the inside linebacker. And my suggestion with that is that if you do that, then you ought to fit all your runs off the fullback and kind of either cross key the sniffer or read off him and then fit runs front side or back side off of that. We've had some issues with this in the past. We've kind of gone back and forth with how we want to do it versus split zone stuff, but when you play a 20 personnel team that can go split zone and then they can bluff you and arc release the end and go to the perimeter and they can throw some RPO stuff, it really kind of really makes you think about how you want to fit everything properly to kind of understand where you're going to get your extra players and how you're going to fit and fold guys to understand where they belong and where they show up, and if you're seeing power or counter or other things. And today we're just going to take a look at the split zone and the two different, in my opinion, two different ways we could or would fit it and some of the issues that arise from that. All right. So obviously, if we're looking at split zone, what we're talking about is getting a front side zone action here. All right. With a fullback who's going to go back door to zip, seal that backside edge and that C gap. All right, so it's split zone. We're not talking right now about zone read stuff. We're talking about straight split zone, which has the fullback or the sniffer zipping or kicking the backside edge. Obviously, off of this now, offensively, you've got 9 million different things. Arc release that guy, bluff that end, read off that end, read him and put the fullback in the flat. RPO or lock the tackle on, go ISO, fold the sniffer on the inside back or RPO off the weak safety. There's so many different variations on offense now that are all variations of option football that you got to make sure defensively you understand how you want to handle those and what do they do best and what are you trying to take away. On the split zone, we're not looking at it as any type of replay. All right, well, we're looking at it as a true give with the fullback kicking, and that's what we're looking at today. All right, so the first way of addressing it, if you were not going to wrong arm and you were going to play the end, if you felt like their quarterback was a real good player that could pull at any time, all right, in any type of shotgun theories, not under center obviously, but any type of shotgun series, you feel like all these could be read plays. All right, the first thing you do is you could play your end as a squeeze pop, kind of a high gear, high wall player for the quarterback. Now, when that happens, what you have to understand is he's probably going to get kicked by that sniffer. You can't ask him to be a high wall quarterback player and also a hard wrong arm player. He can't do both jobs. All right? So if you're going to use him as a squeeze and pop, not a chase guy, all right, if he's going to be a squeeze and pop guy, that means he's probably going to fit outside the zip block, edge block of that fullback. All right, now, the important thing is to make sure that in this theory, your will understands that he has to fit inside the block of that tackle on the zone block now. All right, you don't want that tackle getting inside to cut your will off, because if they get comboed up to the mic and the will gets kicked out, the ball's going to crease right down the middle. What you would like for us is normally, if we have our 8th guy down in the box to the open end side, he's the free hitter for us. That's where we want to work the ball to. And then within how we fit it, he has to understand where he needs to get to have the ball come back to him. So in this scenario right here, what we would try and do is we would make sure that the will fit this hard underneath the tackle, all right, so that when the sky player starts to fold inside, he understands that on the split flow action coming back, his fit is going to be back under, okay, that defensive end, because we're playing that defensive end as a squeeze pop quarterback player. All right, so obviously your tackle here would work. He can't get reached in the A-gap. All right, your Mike would treat all inside runs that are coming inside of him as a direct A-gap fit, all right, with a B-gap fit, C-gap fit, and then you would get an extra fold player from your strong safety there. Okay, so your front side of this zone theory for us, unless we're gaming, moving, or stunning, is never going to change. We're going to fit our 3 there, we're going to fit our 5 there, and then our Mike, any runs that happen inside, any flow that happens inside of him, he treats almost as run away, and he becomes that A-gap player. Okay, so we've got A-gap, B-gap, C-gap. The will is now the backside B-gap player. He's got to fit under the block of the offensive tackle. When he does that, the offensive tackle is forced to wash him or block him inside. If the rush end high walls or squeeze and pops the QB and it's a give, the ball is going to go right back under here. When it goes under there, your safety or your 8th player in the box, your sky or cloud player, has to understand how you're fitting it so he understands how to get back under. All right? If he tries to fit as a D-gap player on a run away from him, the ball's going to go under and you're going to get creased. So it's very important that your fold, all right, extra 8th player in the box, your fold player has to understand how you're fitting it around him so he knows where it's going to fit. All right, he understands where it's going to fit. All right, now, your other option, okay, and I've seen some people that do this to us when we're on offense in 20 personnel, and it causes some issues for us. Your other option is to fit your back end players, all right, your 4 second level players, to fit them off of the intentions of the sniffer, which would give you kind of a cross key, you know, some people call it almost like a rock back theory, you know, in essence. To me, there's really no rock back. It's a rock back fit, I guess you could say, but to me, there's really no rock back, because if that guy goes, we're all going. We're not going one way and then reading, you know, there's no, it's not like a counter where you would, you know, you would be reading under keys, or you would be reading fullback to a play side under key. So if the fullback went front side, but the under key guard pulled back, you would rock back over the top. To me, if we're all reading the fullback or the sniffer and he goes and we go, it might be a rock back type fit, but it's really not a rock back action. But that's neither here or there. That's semantics. The idea is understanding how you're trying to fit it and what you're trying to do. Okay, so now if your strong safety, Mike, Will, and weak safety, if they all cross-keyed the sniffer and they fit off the sniffer versus 20 personnel sets, all right, if they all keyed off the sniffer, what's going to happen now is you're going to get the zone action up front here, okay? All right? Now, when the backside guys all read off the sniffer, now we need hard, wrong arm, spill defensive ends. It is imperative that you have hard, wrong arm, spill defensive ends. Because what's going to happen now is off the flow of the sniffer, our guys are all going to fit this as a run back to this side. So what we're going to end up doing, okay, is now we're going to get the Mike fit in the A-gap. The Will is actually going to fit tight over the top, coming back to him here, because we're going to take the rush down under the wrong arm, all right, the split zone. And now we're going to get the Will over the top with the weak safety over the top, because now with the rush in, hard spilling wrong arming, the weak safety doesn't want to fold on these runs coming back to him, because they shouldn't come back to him. They should all have to bounce. Okay? If your end on any inside veer releases is a hard wrong arm player, okay, what's going to happen, all right, is you're going to need to gain guys where they belong. So you're going to need to gain the Will over the top and the weak safety there, so that if they get any type of option or quarterback pull theories, all right, you can always have one extra guy added on to the run. Okay, so now when you get the split zone and you're going to fit it off the fullback, all right, now you're going to get fullback away, so the Mike's going to become an away A-gap player. Now you're going to hard wrong arm this here, so that when the fullback goes, this Will is getting ready to fit B-gap first. And what he's going to see in a B-gap is he's going to see the zone theory, and he's going to see the end closeout. So he's going to scrape paint tight, okay, tight to that 5 technique, all right? And he's going to try and fit any block that comes at him. It's very important that he spills any pullers coming at him. Now, I know right now we're talking about split zone, but in theory, when he scrapes paint with the rush end, he needs to spill and fit all blocks inside and send the ball right out there, okay? All right, so 2 kind of different theories of where you're sending the ball and how you're doing it. And what you have to understand is you have to be coordinated with the front and the back 4 in an 8-man front. If your end is going to be a hard, wrong arm player, you have to account for the quarterback with somebody else, and you have to know how you're going to play power counter to get extra bodies that way. All right? If your end is going to be a high wall player, or your end's going to be a quarterback player, then your fold guys have to understand how to fit back under that end, because he's now boxing in a way. All right? He's now taking all those blocks on. If he gets a pull or anything coming back, he's kind of taking it on, all right, with the right shoulder, with his outside arm and leg free, with the proper shoulder leverage. So now when the ball goes under him, your fold guy had better come back under. All right? So this theory, we found out that this theory works real well against 20 personnel teams that want to run a lot of split zone power counter. All right? The fullback or the sniffer takes you to the play a lot of the time. So if you can get your back end guys working in consort with the sniffer and fitting off the sniffer, you can get some extra guys, all right, to the power play. In order to play this type of football, you have to have ends that are going to wrong arm and really get under and disrupt that lead block from a puller or a fullback on split zone. They've got to be able to get under it, wrong arm it, kind of split it almost inside half, inside number, and then pry back vertical to try and make themselves an issue in the play. Don't go so far under on the wrong arm that the ball goes slightly outside of you and then vertical again. Wrong arm, but be real thick when you fit that wrong arm, and then pry back vertically into that blocker so that the ball really can't, you know, sometimes you see guys that wrong arm so darn aggressively that they end up in the front side to opposite A-gap on the wrong arm, and it's a train wreck, and it looks good, but then the ball just kind of, you know, some power read teams or teams, the ball just kind of fit just outside of them now and get a vertical crease. All right, so you try and tell that wrong arm guy that he's got to be thick to the inside number of the puller or the fullback, and when he hits that thing, try and hit it and make a play. All right, so try and hit that thing, the wrong arm, it thick through the inside, and then kind of pry back into that leverage to get back involved. Don't just go in there hell-bent for leather. Take that thing on and destroy it. I mean, shoot, for years against us, we had teams that cut our first guy, and the referees wouldn't call it. So anytime they got a veer inside release with a puller coming, they cut that guy and caused a train wreck. All right? That is a decent way of playing it, but that end is never, he's going to make plays for other people, okay? But what we try and tell our ends is, look, I need you to wrong arm this while still being a player and making a play. I want you to be active. Our ends are better football players. I want them to be active and not feel like they're taking themselves out of place, okay? So that's 2 different ways to fit the split zone from an 8-man front, how we would fit split zone going back, obviously at the weak side, all right, going back to the single receiver. You have to then be ready for option coming where they bluff and send the fullback out. You've got to be ready for boot with the fullback in the flat. If you fit it this way, I think you're okay against boot because you continue the will as a secondary contain guy. The weak safety will pick up the fullback in the flat. Now you've got to be able to handle this guy one-on-one here, all right? All right, and then you've got to be able to handle the drag or the crosser and the post or the deep route over the top. All right, if you play it the other way, the rush end is going to sit and be the quarterback player on the boot. All right, and now the weak safety has to not get so far inside that he gets out leveraged by the boot. I like this better versus the boot myself personally because with these guys fitting outside, they're bringing themselves to the boot. The other way around, they bring themselves, even though the rush end is in better, as a squeeze pop, he's in a better position to pull the quarterback up on the boot. If the weak safety is forced to fit and fold under him on the split zone, Now when he gets split zone waggle or boot coming back at him, if he folds too far in here, he gets out leveraged by the fullback into flat. Okay, so those are some things that you have to be aware of. All right, as always, these are just my opinions on how you can do some things. You can do them one way and live with it if you want to fit it one way. You can do them both ways if you have experienced players. I think if you can do them both ways, it's great as a changeup. If you're going your first year in the defense or your first year out of school or you have young kids that are playing, I say you get 2-back or 20 personnel, you fit it one way and you let them know to make a 2-back call, and this is how we're fitting all our 2-back runs if we're going to read off the sniffer, hard, wrong arm. All right? Both ways obviously is better, so you have different ways to give the offense something to think about. One way, if you want to just play simple and fast, either way you do it, one way is better for you to effectively play fast. All right? As always, guys, keep it simple. Build and add on to what you're trying to do. All right? Make sure you understand until you're coaching fast, your guys won't play well until they play fast. See you next time.